Hello, hello? Ah, very good. Hi. You all have met me already. How many psychologists are in the room? Please raise your hands. As always, I'm alone. So I try to make me familiar with all these. How many engineers do we have here? Chemical engineers? Marketing specialists? Economic specialists? So give me a chance, please. Okay, my topic today is value touchdown, value selling beyond silo thinking. Maybe I start from the end. Anyone heard of silo thinking? Okay, very good. Anyone heard about value selling? Also good. And anyone an idea why we called it value touchdown? It's a new one for you. For us it was new as well when we created it, because what we found out is that in the incorporation of marketing and sales, and especially in sales activities, it's very, very difficult to bring the value behind the line and create a touchdown. Even though we find very, very often that people do have value arguments, value positions, USPs, value cards or whatever, it still is a problem. And I would like to give you a two-path approach now. The first part will deal with the question of how is silo thinking created nowadays? What do we as cultural psychologists think of silo thinking? And the second part will show a real case study where we applied these findings in a real case scenario. So you will see these two aspects. Before I get into it, yes, some words about Team Steffenhagen Consulting. It's a spin-off of the Aachen University. We have a strict focus on chemical and life science industry, and in some areas we deal with engineering processes. We are specialized in strategy, marketing and sales excellence, pricing, and change management and leadership. The last two terms I like to combine in the organizational development aspect. Combined experience in the areas of morphological psychology. I'm a morphological psychologist, that is a specific form of in-depth psychology. My colleague Ralf Schmidt, who is attending today as well, he's specialist in economics and business management. And finally, I don't want to forget Bea Reit, who is here with us as well, so you can address all three of us afterwards if you have any questions. Would you like to raise or stand up, Bea? So everyone can see you. Okay, thank you. Specialist for implementation, maybe that is another important aspect. We are not only giving concepts or theories into the companies that we are working with, but we really try to help them to implement what they are aiming at. That is something we are very proud of, but I just want to stick for a second on it. We've just been awarded for one of the best companies in the consulting area, in the area of marketing and pricing. So that was a survey done by the Brand 1 magazine. It's something that we found worth showing you because we are so proud of it, especially because we didn't do anything for that. It just happened, and that is always a good point. So now let me come to my major topic, starting with the starting point, and I think here we've got already a few of these aspects which we had already this morning. A lot of companies we are dealing with are still highly focused on questions of chemistry, of product, of technical aspects. If you look at the organizations, they are very hierarchically organized. They try to drill down, top down the numbers and the targets. And finally, very, very often research and development driven. I've seen this morning was one presenter who said that very often R&D takes decisions, even for sales. And it's the B2B aspect. And we all know that it's not any longer only B2B. Even if you are in the B2B business, the C gets more and more relevant. So the people say it's B2B2C with a while. And in order to really create influence on the whole value chain, you have to know what the customer of your client is requiring from your customers. in order to provide them with the correct information and with an orientation on how they can influence the value chain in a profitable way. I've seen a short comment a few days ago, or a few weeks ago, that was called, "There ain't no B to B to C, there's only H to H." Anyone heard that? Human to human, yeah. And that was I think Tim again was saying, it is about conversation, bringing people together, bridging the gap between what you already set up on strategies and segmentations and whatever, and the yes from side of the customer. So where it is going to? It is going to market and business intelligence, a term that has been risen this morning a few times, and combined with a certain difficulty in realizing market and business intelligence. We've heard about customer intimacy. That was a topic that Akin was dealing with in his group. It was about customer insights and how can I create customer insight that give relevant information so it can really set up business and market intelligence. It's about value chains, and innovation is a topic that we are facing very, very often in the moment. I guess that has a specific reason, because innovation is sort of a promise. If I'm innovative and if I start something new, I get rid of all these nitty-gritty, very complicated and complex duties and challenges and tasks. Of course, we want more process orientation. We want to know more about the applications of our customers. That's what our clients do tell us. And it's, as I said, B to B to C. And my question in your direction, is that change coming from chemistry, product, technique, hierarchy, top-down, R&D, B2B, to market and business intelligence, customer intimacy, value chain, innovation, process, application, and so forth? Is that an easy way for you? No? Anyone who says yes? Okay. Any idea why it is so difficult? Change the way of? Yeah. What is it so difficult? Why not change the way of thinking? The comfort zone is definitely one, yeah. Any other idea? Thinking is change. The comfort zone has to be left. I've got a different approach on that. Based on, I think, with a while more than 250 in-depth interviews that we did in companies of various sizes, and we did an own study on that. So question is, what makes it so difficult to place the ball or the value behind the line? And one thing that maybe every one of you is sort of subjected to is what we call acceleration. An acceleration of time to market, product cycles, innovation pressure, and so forth. Ending up, do you share that idea of acceleration nowadays? If you see WhatsApp, active users see the numbers, how fast they are rising, or messages sent per day. If you look at other of these tools, you'll see there is a big acceleration in our times, which very often ends up in, I don't have enough time for something, I don't have the time to look for that. I had the discussion when we had the group dealing with the Salesforce mobilization, who said the people are not any longer working through the numbers. They don't have the time. We collect the numbers, but we don't analyze them accordingly. So what we see is this acceleration is, and that's how I call that, ending up in a self-centered hyperactivity. What I see with a while is very often what I call ADHD strategies, attention deficit hyperactivity disease activities. Quickly, lack of strategic focus, that was when we were working the hint of prioritization. Things are not prioritized correctly. We see implementation roadblocks very often. We see oversized product portfolios. We see portfolios with a number of products that haven't been touched for years, even though the product lists do still comprise these products. We see endless account lists. We have seen the Pareto principle this morning. With 20% of your customers, you make 80% of your profits usually. People dealing with endless account lists and not profitable customers. We see burnout syndromes, we see time pressure, and we see cheap activities. I don't want to harm you or to offend you by that. And I don't know in how far you see these things in your company. But what we very often see is a lot of people running around, feeling very important, being totally stressed, close to burnout, but finally stating that the outcome is not in balance to their efforts they put in these ideas they have. So psychologically, that is highly interesting. We see an acceleration phase, and suddenly the people are turning around and doing a lot of things at the same time, and finally ending up in doing nothing, if I put it a little bit into an exaggeration. And the consequence of this ADHD strategies is an avoidance of wading through a diversity of orders. And one of these diversities has been discussed this morning already. One diversity of orders is, of course, the cultural diversity. If you are a global player and you have to deal with several cultures, you have to deal with them. You have to think about how can I manage them. If you have a lot of numbers in your CRM system or anywhere else, you should have the time to work through that. And that is what we see people avoid working through that. We see very, very important negotiations ahead of a key account. And he goes into that negotiation without any precise preparation, not knowing his customer's new strategy, not knowing the idea of a new organizational process his customer has in front of himself. And if we ask them, how does it come that you don't prepare, the people come back to the point that we had before. Less time, time pressure, too many activities, not prioritized strategies. So organizational changes, the one-on-ones are the while missing. To be frankly speaking, I would say 80% of our customers, they do have one-on-ones between superior and employee. But they are more or less standardized, done, but a real dialogue usually fails with a while. Maybe you have another experience in that, but a real one-on-one where I get together with my employee or my superior, depending on, getting in a real dialogue. What's your interest? Why do you perform like that and not like that? What is my expectation? What is your expectation? Is avoided with a while. And that is easy because if I'm doing such a lot of things all the time and I'm so important and I'm so busy and I'm running around, okay, that keeps me away from really facing a problem with my colleague or my superior or my team. So the promise is quite well. So we see an avoidance of wading through a diversity of orders. And that ends up finally in using simple abstractions. That was something that we had this morning already as well. The difference between information and meaning. Of course, I can kill you with information, and information is available everywhere. But to transfer an information into a meaning that is really pulling or pushing people is a completely different thing. And we see that at the stock market bubbles, for example. And we've heard this examples from your side this morning. Real economical values compared to Google or any more or less not real economic value reflecting companies. And you see the gap already. That is, from my point, an aspect of abstraction. We see the undocking of financial management from real economy. We see a tilting in of budget numbers. The people are not told about this is our strategy, there we want to go, these are the products we want to focus, but what we see usually the numbers are tilted in, coming from above, the top-down process. Usually the people are creating a buffer in their budget numbers and they drill down the buffer in order not to get stressed too hardly. Okay, pricing without an idea of selling. How often do we see pricing units creating prices without letting the sales force know what the price reflects, or without equipping sales with an according tool to bring over the value? Missing. And finally, we think that we are stuck in a facts and figures religion. And that is coming back to Tim again. People don't have real conversations with the why. So where does that end up? We have a self-centered type activity on the one hand, and an avoidance of wading through a diversity of orders that was held by abstraction a little bit, but from our perspective, this context is more or less dissolving with a while. And it ends up in these business unit conflicts. I think every one of you knows them. Anyone who is not familiar with the BU conflict. So everyone knows that. Okay. Silo thinking. Familiar with. Departmental egoisms? Familiar with. Herr Wille? Never heard. Okay, I hope the others as well have never heard that. And if you look at these points as a psychologist, you raise one question. When I started doing the business 20 years ago, and that is nowadays the same, and I'm asking people, or I'm talking to people like you, to be frankly speaking, they all say they are very, very rational, especially the B2B business people. They think they are much more rational than the consumer-related people who care of this emotional stuff sometimes. We in B2B, no, completely rational. If I look at the product portfolios, account lists, if I look at departmental egoisms, and if I look at silo thinking, if I look at ivory tower acting, I can ask myself, so rational? Can that be? There must be another influence from my perspective. And the influence is that we are presently stuck, and that is one of the outcomes of our cultural psychological analysis, that we are living in a split already. In a split that is culturally set. We are working in these divisions, in separations, in BU conflicts, departmental egoisms, and that ends up finally in a situation where we've got, for example, and that's just one example, marketing versus sales. And it's not that you are a bad guy. You are from marketing or sales? Sales, okay. So he's one of these, stupid sales guys. And now maybe here we've got one of these smart marketing guys. Whether he is stupid or smart, or whether he is smart or stupid, we don't know. But both of them take care not to collide, because if we bring them really together, and that was my question, how do these departments work together? They will get in conflict. And that is stressful, because you have to level your perspectives, you have to level your price ranges maybe, you have to level your areas, your customer portfolio. All these things should be discussed. And that is with a while really suppressed by this given split. And that from our side ends up, and I'll stress you a little bit if you don't mind, and that again ends up in pictures like this. This is Rambo with a highly sophisticated city map. Guess who is sales and who's marketing? It's very easy. Rambo is sales in the jungle with a knife between his mouth, working at the customer and knowing his customers, and he knows very specifically what his customer has in mind when he's working with him. But he is equipped for marketing with a brilliant plan. But I don't think that he's really able to work with that plan. And it's not that marketing delivers the wrong thing. It's from the beginning that they sort of fail to understand. And we call that monophthalmia of people involved. Now, I don't know whether all of you know what monophthalmia is. The one-eyedness, yes, thank you, Mr. Wille. It is really that you just have one eye, and that excludes already the right side. So if we are all starting with this monophthalmia, we don't get sales in our perspective, or we don't get marketing in our perspective. And that makes so many discussions so complicated. That means we all have a clear focus on our own activities. If I see value pricing processes, for example, and I look at the marketing section working on the value price positioning, I see them working for weeks and months and half a year and a year. And then they finally come down to a price indication and they say, well, it could be a good idea to talk with sales about that. After 1 year. And then they address sales and say, well, sales, look, we have a brilliant idea. and we did this and that and this and that and this and that. And the marketing department shows all this brilliant analysis and all the brilliant findings. And sales says, well, you could have told me that half a year before. Because if you would have known what I know from the market or the region or the customer, you wouldn't have been so stupid to give that price indication. So everyone does what he can do best. So marketing very often is a specialist for maps, and sales is very often the specialist for the territory, without any conversation or dialogue. Instead of the separation between marketing and sales, we said here separation between pricing and selling, for example. Exposure to customer pressure, throwing things over the fence. These are the results of a split and the monophthalmia of the people involved. So all in all, this is just an overview. We see that it is not so easy to come from chemistry, product, hierarchy, technique, to market, customer, value chain, innovation, process, and application. So you see this arrow here shows that is obviously not so easy, because we get in self-centered hyperactivities, making us feel active, important, and stuff like that, but that allows us to avoid to work through a diversity of orders, sort of based by a separation and split, ending up in a monophthalmia by the people involved. And so you can go back to the starting point, because if you don't manage to overcome BU conflicts, and especially the monophthalmia of the people involved, you will not create a process-oriented, customer-oriented, value chain-oriented company and its business. So that's the theoretical background here. The real case value touchdown was, it was about a launch of a new product, which is a raw material in an end consumer product for babies. The product had a predecessor with the same technical attributes, but the new product is eco-friendly because it is produced from renewable resources instead from crude oil. In the first product like this in the market, and enables consumer good manufacturers to introduce new eco-friendly product lines. Big brand manufacturer already refused to buy the product because of the risk to cannibalize existing brands by the increasing environmentally friendly buying behavior. You see here already how the end consumer gets into the game. We are on the business to business area, but the end consumer comes already into the game. We did a value touchdown workshop, and that was the moment when this term was born, value touchdown, because the question was, if we have such a good product in hands, why is it so difficult for us to convince our customers to make a testing with this product? So we came together with a team of 1 global business development representative, 3 global key account managers, global marketing representatives 2, and 1 regional marketing representative. So it was a quite small team. They have been working on the topic before as well. And the customer was a major key account. It was a pilot project, crucial to a double-digit million-dollar invest. And it was a lighthouse customer for our client. What we found was we had separated work processes, especially between marketing and sales, and I should add, especially between sales and the pricing, the people who are in charge of pricing. Unconnected business unit conflicts, that was very clear when we had the 3 key account managers together at one table. Blinders towards the other parties involved in the process, so you see the recapitulation of what I said before in our findings. Unfacilitated interests, mental freeze according to the million-dollar invest, so that was sort of a shocking moment for this team, which was not familiar with these numbers. Unconversant with the eco-business, and finally, unmet end consumer needs have been expected. I go over that. The challenge was win a pilot customer who is willing to bring an eco-friendly product into the market as a first mover, to create a pull in the market and to understand eco-premium along the B2B2C value chain. That was our challenge. The task was negotiations were already running with a pilot candidate. 3 meetings with no nameable results already took place, and that was the moment when we entered the game. And our task was to prepare the next negotiation with this customer with the objective to come to a go or no-go decision. And what we did is, and that is the value touchdown principle that I show now, and to be frankly speaking, it's so simple that a lot of people ask me whether I'm serious in showing that. Due to the success that we created by this process, I still refuse to skip the slides here. So one aspect is the goal matching, and it's very simple. You should check what are the goals internally. So we check what are the goals of our client, and in the next step, we check what are the goals of our client's customer. And now you say, well, that is in the handbook of every salesperson. You should do that. What we find is it is not done because people avoid to work through these things. And it takes time, of course, to bring people together and to think about what are our internal goals, what are the external goals, and now what value arguments do we have that fit to our internal goals and to the external goals of our client. So here the first preparation gets very precise. That means if I have my goals and the goals of my customer, I find two areas. One area is, well, we have an overlap. That means positively we can come together. And we have a second overlap, maybe that means negatively. Here we've got really restrictions in order to make business together. If I got these two overlapping areas clear, I can think about my value arguments and to which area do I apply a specific value argument. And that's finding up in the term of the goal matching process. So the goal matching means if we create these or identify the overlaps, we can sort of assemble a first negotiation strategy by aligning the value arguments with these negative or positive overlapping areas. Very, very helpful is to collect all possible value arguments. And here again, we've got a procedure that is starting with the product features and then asks for the consequences for the customer. And so you've got a specific feature asking for the consequences for your customer, and then derive the adequate value attributes. Usually we see product feature, skip to value attributes, but that is only avoiding the necessity of getting a clear idea of how does my product work in the application of our customer, because only if I understand that, I can really derive a value that is finally sales enforcing and sales increasing. And we do a psychological mapping. I don't want to go too much in detail here. There are various tools that can help you here. But sitting together and asking yourself is, whom am I going to meet? In that real case scenario, that was a small negotiation group of 3 or 4 people, very specific in their decision-making competencies, very different in their psychological characters. And hereby we started to describe a psychological mapping of the group dynamic scenario on the one hand, and on the individual psychological basings or preconditions that we will encounter, and adjusted the whole negotiation strategy to this group dynamic and individual psychological findings. And that ended up in a choreography where you can really ask yourself, if you have identified the needs of the negotiation team that you are meeting, do I start with a big picture, for example, and that is just one example that is very easy to digest, or do I have to present details? Do I have to first focus on option, or do I have to first focus on experience? Do I have to be more person related or more facts and figures related? That's really all depending from the single people that you are going to meet and the group dynamic that will be probably starting in the negotiation. So that ends up in a choreography, like in a sort of a dance. And it's different if you want to win over a young or beautiful lady doing a cha-cha or a waltz. And depending on how she is dressed maybe, depending on the time of the evening, you should maybe choose the waltz. Sometimes the cha-cha is better. And if there is someone who only likes to dance waltz, why dance cha-cha with him? And I know a lot of negotiations where our clients again and again started with trying to have a cha-cha, and a waltz would have led them finally to a profitable outcome. So that is about the choreography. So I hope you see that there are major topics we have that is, from my perspective, the topic of, and we had that alignment of marketing and sales. Try to bridge the gap between marketing organization and sales organization and the described split. Prioritize the work that you are doing, and finally work through the stuff that you have already in your systems, in your people, or somewhere else. And I think outcome so far, that's a little bit like that. Preparing teams for important strategic negotiations and value selling. The goal matching aspect from my point of view is, if you look at the means, very important. The collection of value arguments, very important. Psychological mapping, from my perspective, bringing these aspects together. And finally, the choreography for the negotiation. These are the key elements that everyone should address to. Again, very simple, but if you bring people together for a day or two, it might cause some costs on the one hand, but what we see is that profitability finally levels that or brings you more money than you thought before. Thank you very much.